Hey Maggie and Caleb, Merry Christmas. I hope your CheesePress made it to you okay, and just wanted to give you kind of a quick user's manual before you get started in using it. We got some other elves that are still busy working here, especially this really little one who's kind of loud sometimes, so if he's too distracting, we'll make sure we put him back to work. But just wanted to kind of go over when you get your CheesePress. Just kind of the assembly and just some basic how to use it and how to care for it in the long run. So when you get it, it'll be in a box just like this, and when you open it up, there'll be some other packaging material inside that we use just for shipping it, but really you don't need to keep that in there for the long run. We just want that in there so when it's being shipped and it's rattling around, nothing's getting broken. But just kind of the basic pieces that are inside. You've got this upper assembly, and this has the threaded part that you're going to use to screw down on top of the CheesePress instead of using weights like a lot of the other ones. This kind of makes the design a little more compact. There's a spring in here, and then there's this threaded follower that'll kind of move up and down as you turn the threaded plunger. And then this part across here we just kind of call the bridge because it'll span across two columns, which we'll show you in a little bit. You can take this part, this piece apart if you want to. These all come apart, and this can unscrew and thread off there, but really you probably won't need to, even for wiping it down later on. Most of the time this can just stay together. So it makes it a little easier and a little easier to store. The next part is the base. So obviously this wooden part is not 3D printed, but there's two 3D printed parts that are screwed directly to it, and you just want to leave those on there. There's no need to ever unscrew them. We made it so the height is good enough that you can, or low enough that you can place it in the box each time without taking those pieces off. The base is treated with a mineral oil, just like cutting board. It's actually cutting board oil, so that you can get it wet and get food stuff on it and still be able to clean it off and have it be a food safe item. So that's the base. The next piece is, just call this the puck, and this is where actually the threaded plunger piece actually interfaces in there. We'll get to that in a little bit when we put her all together. And then you got two column pieces that have bolts inside, so you can just unscrew those guys. There's wing nuts on top of the columns, so you just take the wing nuts off, set them aside, don't lose them. If you do, you can find other ones. It's pretty common size. Then you got the bolt, the column, and so then you got the other guy. We'll take that off real quick just so it's all ready to put together. It's a little elf. And the column, and then I think, yep, last piece is the handle. The handle is really just like a wrench, so you can use either side of it. It's just got a hex interface that interfaces with the top of this threaded plunger. Goes right on there so that it's easier to turn. So, assembly. We want to start with the base. Sometimes you can do this just with one person. Sometimes it gets a little tricky, but what you'll do is actually you'll thread the rod in through the bottom of the base and up through the printed plastic piece, and then you'll actually feel there's a receiver on the bottom that's the hex shape just like the bolt. So if you kind of put it in there, just kind of turn it a little bit, and you'll feel it kind of kick up into that little receiver pocket there, and then you won't be able to turn the bolt anymore. So you want to get both these guys in there. And the tricky part is they don't just stay there, which would make it easier if they just stayed there. So now you got these guys on here, and you still got to get the columns on here. So there's one column, there's another column, then you got to get the bridge on top of there without all the pieces falling. So that's the tricky part. So this piece can actually stay there. It doesn't need to be up at the top while you're putting it together, but you do need to thread these little bolts up in there. So I got this guy up here. Wasn't super easy doing it by myself, but you can do it. Once you get a little thread exposed, you can go ahead and just put that little wing nut on there. Then we can move over to the other side. It helps to kind of do it on the side of a table where you can push up underneath the base to get the bolt going through there. So let's see if we can get it spun around. It's a little harder to get it spun around and get it in the receiver when it drops down, but once you get it up there, you can see there's a little bit of thread. That's just enough to get the wing nut on there. So we got that wing nut on. We'll just snug them down. They don't need to be really tight. They just kind of need to be finger tightened down, just enough so that the piece isn't really moving around, not rocking back and forth. So really, this is the main setup, but you still have extra pieces. So we'll show you what to do with those too. Now, when you're ready to make your cheese, you'll have your mold, you'll have your follower, and the first thing you'll do is put your cheese in there. So this is a cheese I made. Okay, actually it's a tape measure, but it gives us kind of the right height so that the unit can all be used together. But when you've got your curds inside your cheesecloth, you can just kind of set that in there, fold the cheesecloth on top, and then set your follower on there, and just kind of give it a little pat down to let some more of the whey get out. I wouldn't do it on your kitchen table. Probably do that over the sink. But then this piece goes on there, puck goes inside of there, and then that all just slides right underneath here. And so you'll see that this piece, the threaded traveler, actually interfaces with the bridge so that the slots in there line up with these little knife looking pieces that are coming down. So that'll just set in there like that. You can kind of hand tighten this at this point so that the threaded traveler starts to build up just a little bit of compression on the whole assembly. And then once the spring gets to the top, that's actually when you've loaded it up enough that you're actually putting force down on the cheese at that point. So if it gets a little tougher, and probably just better put on there anyway, you can just use the handle. So that makes it really easy to turn. This can actually do up to 30 pounds of force on there. So instead of having to have 30 pounds of weight, the spring and our hands do all the work for us so that we don't need to keep putting 5 pounds on there, waiting for 10 minutes, then putting another 5 pounds on there, waiting for 15 minutes. So the spring makes it really nice and keeps things compact with a whole lot of the need for not having a whole lot of extra weights, which is kind of cool. So saying that, and it might be kind of hard to see on here, but there's little tick marks along this little knife edge. Each one of those marks is 5 pounds. So when you're starting all the way at the bottom, so that the top of this traveler is lined up with that first tick mark, you're at 0. So you're at 0 pounds. When you start to turn the handle and that rises up to that first tick mark, you're at 5 pounds. Second tick mark, you're at 10 pounds, and so on. And it'll go all the way up to 30 pounds. So that's really the gist of how you would put the cheese press together and actually start to press the cheese. So one nice thing is it actually fits in a 9x9 pan, because again, you don't want to do this on your kitchen table and have the whey go everywhere, but you can just stick it in a 9x9 pan and let the whey come out in the pan. When you're getting far enough along and you got the whey starting to build up in there, you can go over to the sink and just kind of drain the whey off into the sink, and then come back a little bit, press a little further. If you need to drain it at that point, go ahead and drain it. But it just keeps it nice and compact and less messy, just being able to put it inside the 9x9 pan. So, saying that, once your cheese is done, taking it apart is really the same as putting it back together, just the other direction. So you'll want to just use the handle to raise the plunger back up, which actually is gonna drop the threaded traveler down because the spring is pushing that guy back down. And you can just keep turning that, and then it'll just kind of release from the little knife edge of the bridge there. You can pull the handle off at this point, set that aside. Then we can take off our column bolts, and you'll probably hear them drop. Oh, that one didn't. We will when we pull the bridge off. So we can set our wing nuts aside. Again, we don't want to lose them. There they go. So there's the upper assembly coming off. 2 columns coming off. Probably could have taken our mold off a while ago and taken our little puck out. Cheese turned out really good. Set that aside. And then the bolts will just come out through those bottom holes. So that's how you put it together, and then make the cheese and remove the mold and disassemble. For care, the biggest thing you'll want to do really is just wipe it down. There's really no need to run it through the dishwasher. It's made out of ABS plastic, which has a pretty high melting point. You could theoretically put it in the dishwasher, but there's really no reason to. The best thing you could do is just wipe it off. If there's stuff that's still kind of sticking, use a mild detergent or a kind of a diluted dish soap to do that. And then you've got the oak base, same thing. Just wipe that off and let everything dry. It helps to kind of towel dry it. Just set it in a drying rack, and then when it's done, you can go ahead and just put it back in the box you want, if you want, or if you got a better way to store it, that's fine. Just probably want to make sure that these pieces kind of stay together as much as they can. Just makes it a little easier to put it together when you're done. I like storing the bolts in the columns. Just makes it a little simpler when you pull it out to go set it up again, because you know where all your pieces are. So one final thing, if there's anything that you would want to change, or if something breaks for some reason, or if you want another color, by all means, let us know. All the models and everything are done, and really that's the biggest part of the work. The printing is easy. Changing things after the models are done is easy. So if you have a better idea of a way that we can improve it, let us know. And we'd definitely like to hear what works and what doesn't. And again, we're just glad that you're able to get the cheese press, and hope you'll get some good use out of it. And we love you guys, and Merry Christmas.